Revit's not here to stay. It can be, but it's who's driving it, right? Why did Revit get built from the beginning? It all came from a group of architects and engineers going, we're so done with drawing in 2D. How can we be better? And that's what's happening. We've been so blessed with having this new technology, but there's going to be another step where it's just going to blow us. And we're due. We're way overdue for that new tech to come into play. Architects are so slow to advance. And I think you guys can probably agree, and we can talk about that. There is better ways out there to doing, when it comes to construction administration, of course, even all the things that we do leading up to that point where basically the job is given over to you in that respect. And I think through today's discussion, we're going to really talk about that. We're in a very ever-evolving, changing world right now. AI is right there at the forefront. How can we use that? It's not going to take our jobs. You still have to be the guy doing it. But I like the example. I like to kind of, when people are scared of it, it's like, well, we can both build a house with a hammer, but we can also build it a lot quicker with a nailer, right? And I think that's kind of, at the end of the day, if we can kind of utilize today's technology, we're there. I feel like the GC side, you guys have been rocking it. You guys are advancing. You're using tools day to day. Again, Tyler, with all the software tech that you're involved in, things are moving. From the architectural point, we've been kind of flatlining it for the last, almost 2 decades in a sense, other than emails and faxing, all those. And Revit was a new kind of game changer. Nothing's really truly changed in terms of the process. But that's where I want to get your take on it, because it's one thing to talk to architects and, engineers, consultants and all that. And, but it's a much more fluid and a dynamic conversation that we're going to have today. So yeah. I'm excited.
All right, I'll take exception to the nailer comment because I've got a freaking DeWalt hammer, like a DeWalt nailer, like Brad nailer. I'm calling you out, DeWalt. Freaking jams.
What?
Every time. It drives me freaking insane. It worked great for a little while. Now it's jamming all the time. Send me a new one, DeWalt.
Are you buying DeWalt nails?
Yes. Sorry. Already off the rails here.
Well,
Eddie,
I want to
you say something smart.
Okay, this is going to be very conversational because I do want to call out, like, Matt, you've got a podcast. So I want to give you a chance to shout it out.
Thank you. So the podcast is called What the RFI, and it's all about construction administration from the lens of an architect, project coordinator, you name it. And again, it's just a mentorship, a weekly episode. Just how can we be better? What can we do different? And just like I said, be better with communication. Communication's key at the end of the day. It totally is, and that goes whether it's just like this, your site meetings, drawings, you name it. Communication's key.
What the RFI. Freaking love that, dude. So great.
Thank you.
Great. Yes.
We've either got a room full of experts or a room full of hot air today. One of the
two. We'll figure it out.
I know what's on this side of the wall.
Yes. This is a fact.
We're counting on you, Matt.
Let's do it.
I think this is good. We're going to have some fun here. So, we're on the other side of the fence. You've got a background in architecture, and I hear what you're saying. Like, architects are maybe slow to adopt and have been a little flatlined. I could say that we could accuse subcontracting GCs of the same.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe let's start with why do you think that is? Like, what's the personality or like what's the ingredient that makes it kind of hard for the architectural community to move as fast as you maybe are saying they should try?
Yeah. Well, like, let's go back in time here and kind of look at a couple, like, literally evidence and the data and stuff. Like, been in the industry for 22 years. I finished school, got into architecture. I didn't really land too well with too many great firms. I had one firm that couldn't pay us on time. The next thing you know, the lights were being turned off. That was a story on its own. But so at the point, I took a kind of a little side quest and I became an Autodesk reseller, and I started, and that was right when Revit was just purchased by Autodesk. So I was using Revit before it got purchased, then when it was, and then I was starting to sell it. I did that for about 4 years in the industry. So being here in Vancouver, BC, I was an early adopter. I actually bought a license for myself for my own personal practice and using it day to day. And it was an incredible tool. And when you went to these demos and kind of showcased it to, these architects, these guys doing it, in that, half an hour of having that conversation, talking about, why we're from AutoCAD days to Revit. And at the end of that session, you would have this amazing little project built right in front of them. And then you pull out the wild card, being like, oh, client wants a change. It's Friday at 5:00. I want to go home, but we're going to move this wall up, move the window. Boom, everything was done, right? And instantaneous. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. This is the next big thing. All right, ready to sign? No. What do you mean, no? Like, your competitors are going to overtake you. And we actually met with people in that sense. And it's just such a slow industry. It's the same thing if we even go back in time. We look at AutoCAD. That was such a slow process to go from hand drafting and that. And I don't know why change is so hard in the industry. I was very fortunate to work at a firm where they did believe in ideas where, like me personally, I love tech. I really do. I embrace it. I do. And I do look at the ROIs. Is this worth it? So like we were bringing drones to sites in the early days where, before you applied a license, you had to write out a whole freaking report of why you weren't going to crash. And if you did, who would you kill? All these crazy kind of analogies. But we used it in such a great way to basically model the site, do cut and fills in advance. When we were given pricing for extras we had to bring so many trucks in, we would use that technology. It was a great firm to work with, but so many, they would just look at you, and it's like, I'll tell you how to do it, but it's that adoption of taking that step. And it's scary. Change is scary. I hate change, but I feel like life is always changing and you just got to go with it. Once you get comfortable, that's when change happens.
So I'll add in here because I've stepped into some architecture offices over the years, and I have seen how in a lot of these offices they have like still the physical models out on tables, showing them off. They even have hand sketches out there. I watched a guy who it was incredible to watch him. He sat there and he was hand sketching this home on this hill, and it was like really, really pretty, and like I loved that. But at the same time, I'm looking at it going, maybe that's the reason they don't want to adopt some of this new stuff, is because they came into architecture more from an artistic bend. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's the reason why they don't want to adopt new technologies. They feel like it's separating them from the tools that they're used to, that they feel that they can express themselves with. Do you feel like that's the case? Are you seeing that a lot?
On some level, yes.
Okay.
But the same thing, like the sketching, like I still sketch, right?
Yeah,
always.
right.
I handwrite my notes too, but I digitize them because there is a connection. And I had one principal I worked with who basically, that's how he explained it. He called us in because he was getting so sick and tired of the drawings going out and, extras and all that kind of stuff. And he basically rolled out a piece of trace and he just started drawing. And he's like, as I connect to the page, I'm physically building that wall in my mind. And it's true, right? Like when you have that touch element, there's a lot of power to it. And I'm finding with like the new generation that's coming in, they're great on the computer. Click, 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 click. But they have no clue what they're doing. But kind of going back to that point there, Tyler, like that's still an art. And I hope that never dies. You should still be sketching. You should be exercising that muscle memory in that respect. It's even goes back to the days of like when we had CDs in the car. I had all these lovely Napster CDs that I would put in, and you knew what track they were.
Right.
You knew what track 13 of that Finger 11 album or whatever the case is. You knew all those tracks. And now with the digital world, it's not resonating. It's not sticking to. So hand drawing is, again, that touchy feeling thing's really important. I think it's, like I said, it's the whole attitude of that's how we've done it before. That's how we've always done it. Well, that's nice. Again, when they invented the nailer, guys were framing houses, tenfold.
Art changes over time too. Like we're seeing that shift where it used to be a paint and paintbrush. Now it's Illustrator,
Yes.
And new stuff's coming out. And it's really interesting as a result of it. It's like we're using these tools and now the output is changing as a result of those tools, which is a really cool place for us to be. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I can definitely feel like there's a little bit of a laggard mentality there of like, oh man, but I really like my pencils. These Blackwings are so great. Like, love these pencils to death,
You really do.
I do love a Blackwing pencil, man. Those things are, shout out.
Yeah, that's
So good.
No, 100%.
Are they teaching this? Like, are they teaching some of these tactile skills in school still?
I'm starting to feel old because, I just turned 40 a couple of years ago, so I'm 41 in that respect. And when we were in school, we were doing hand drafting, right? And it was a pain because, we would draw this shop out, and then you're like, oh, got to move a couple walls, and you're like, oh my goodness, get the eraser. It was horrific, right? Versus AutoCAD, you could easily just select these areas, copy paste, do your magic, shrink stuff over, and then Revit came into the mix, where you just basically move that wall and boom, all the elevations, the sections, everything were updated other than, a few extra details that we had to layer on top of that, right? So again, that's just another reason why change, if you can stop and pause and then kind of, basically it's the whole, pause, pivot, unlearn, relearn, that kind of attitude, right? And you can definitely, change that goal. I don't know if they're teaching hand drafting in school days. They really should. Honestly, I feel like they should do it for at least a week because, again, that whole pen to paper mentality, understanding what you're drawing, building that wall, when you put that door, you're drawing that door, you're building the headers in there where you got that roof, those beams coming in, you're thinking about that, you're running the point loads, all those things. It will make you a better architect, better designer, better coordinator because you're doing all that conflict resolution right there in the design stage versus on site.
I don't know. Was it you that told me Revit's short for revise it? That was no, that was how
Really?
it started out for a name or a title.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was something along. Yeah. What is it?
Yeah. It was kind of this combined name for revise it.
Revise
yeah.
it, rev it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So all this time, just Revit, and then
Oh man.
Which
comical.
Early days it was
comical.
You'd hear somebody and they'd be trying to sound heady and talk about that new modeling software, and they'd call it Rivet.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're like, okay, you're a poser. You hadn't used it. So, and it is funny how that's evolved. I can definitely, I could share in those memories of the early days when you're you're walking in with a model and people are actually impressed with it.
Yeah.
And
Now it's just an expectation.
Yeah, we do that.
Oh,
We do 3D.
Yeah. So as we move away from, all right, we'll stop with the pen and paper talk for a minute.
All right.
Let's move forward into some of the newer stuff like AI and all of these other things as it pertains to architecture. How are people feeling in the architecture realm around AI right now? Because I don't know. It's pretty interesting to see some of the stuff it's spitting out.
100%. And I connect with a lot of architects, daily, yearly in that respect on kind of my day-to-day job. But some are really embracing it. You get the big firms or, they've got actual AI sectors just trying to streamline it and bring it into their process. Some are completely scared, don't want to do it, right? They feel that's going to take their jobs, which is not the case. I feel again, it's baby steps at the end of the day because if you look at the old days of when we came up to design, right? You would pull out those magazines or those books. I have my mood board that I've done all these clippings from this book, right? Then Pinterest, Google came out and then Pinterest came about. And now I find AI, from the schematic side of things, that's where we're using, DALL-E or any of those other kind of applications. Even ChatGPT now is using those tools to basically give you some concepts. So the ones that are using it, it's basically giving them something to start the conversation and then go back and take it. Is it going to cripple us in the end? A little bit, maybe. You know what I mean? It's one thing to see this crazy generated image of, like I said, a brand new building versus you coming up with that and playing with it. But again, you're the artist behind it, right? You're the artist putting the prompts in. You're the one that's doing those hand sketches, starting off with that idea and that vision, and you're just trying to fast track that vision. So it's a bit of both. Again, I'd probably say there's a good solid 10 to 20% that are really adopting it in that sense. Huge amount of interest. When I go to all these conferences, those classes are the ones that are packed. Everyone's very interested in seeing it. But again, you've got to take that next step and actually do it. I use AI every day, for, the show and the show notes, writing up blog posts, you know what I mean? Like I'll be the artist behind it. AI help me make this SEO optimize and help me do some of this. Hey, that looks good. Let me make some changes, right? And that's where personally I've been using it as well. And then there's a whole other realm when it comes to CA and when it comes to estimating and the tools that you guys again, you're seeing all the tools from the construction side.
It's a great tool, like ideating on that. I got brain block. Yeah. I need somebody to help me brainstorm. It is a very strong tool when it comes to helping with a brainstorm.
Have you tried the voice mode in Chat GPT yet, Matt?
I've talked to text, but that sounds a little different.
Okay, so you can put it in voice mode on the app.
Okay.
And then you can literally have just a conversation with it.
Takes Pro,
dear.
doesn't it?
I don't know if it takes, it might.
It
might take Pro.
We were looking.
Which, I have it.
Last night.
Yeah. So no, you can have a conversation with it.
It'll talk back to you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot of times, as an example of I need to wrap my head around a sales pitch. I need to wrap my head around, if we're looking at the architecture space, I'm getting ready to go in and pitch this building. Being able to sit down and just have that conversation initially and kind of get some of the key talking points in order. And it's like talking to another freaking human. It's really weird. It's really weird.
That is very cool though.
It's so cool. It creeps me out, but I love it.
I had to change my control panel on my pool this last weekend, and I actually turned the video mode on with voice mode, allowed it to watch me unwire the control panel so that when I wired it back, it could instruct me with how to put the wires back in. So I asked it, can you do this for me? I was like, yeah, sure. Just, unwire it, be careful, make sure the power's off. And I unwired it. And then when I came back, I was like, which one was it? And it was like, okay, you're going to put the black wire here. Now the yellow wire. Now the yellow and black wire. And it helped me rewire it. Pretty cool. An application I had never thought of until, we interviewed Ahmed.
Right. Yeah. My gosh, man. I don't know. It's little things like that where, we say that it won't take jobs, but at the same time, I think it will. And,
some depends. Yes.
It depends on the job for sure. But what I'm getting really excited about personally is I love being able to be more of the thought leader and it kind of just be that partner with me to just come up with cool ideas. And it's extended me so much just being able to poke it, just poke it and see what comes out. Because I love having ideas anyway. Both of us are that way. We love coming up with new ideas and talking to people with ideas and all of this stuff. But this is a way to expedite that process and refine the thoughts that you're having too, so that you can even develop some action steps out of it. So I'd almost be curious to see some of the ways, if an architect were to approach it like that and say, how might I, change this? How might I change that about my workflow? Some of the different things that you could get out of Chat, just bare bones, not even the pro version. It's crazy.
Exactly. I remember when we had to do a construction safety plan, and we kind of when that was requested from the job, it kind of we're like, has anyone done it on the office? No, and that's when Chat GPT was just coming out in mainstream, right? So we're all right, we get in there and we typed in, create a construction safety plan based on this stress and and just the thing blew our minds right in that moment. And we're like, oh my goodness, and how good it was and everything and how scary it is. And kind of going back to your point a moment ago there, Tyler, what I think you're going to start to see, and I'm guilty of doing this already, and I'm appreciating it, is rather than me going to Google and asking, hey, Google, how do I, what is this? I'm going to ChatGPT because it's pulling so many more sources and giving me almost the exact information what I need. The scary thing where it's going to hurt us as human beings, where autocorrect came into our lives, you're spelling it, are you going to trust it? Because it's only... AI knows it's right? That's how it is. It's just, I am AI, I am right, I know everything. Yeah, you only know what you've been fed and talked about, and you could be pulling bad sources. And it's just watching YouTube, how to build a deck. And you're going to find the most common ones, there's good stuff, but then you're going to be that's not how we frame. So we'll see.
Whenever I have a question that's more Google-based, I've been going to Perplexity. That's been my go-to for that because it cites a lot more sources, and it's basically like going to Google, but you're not having to do the digging through the links. It just brings everything to the surface for you to read.
Yeah.
And then it provides links out of that and saying like, here's where I'm getting this information. If you want to know more here, just go here. Golly, we were, I think we were, my daughter and I, this was kind of fun. The other day, like we're driving down the road for chat she just randomly asked me, she was like, Dad, why do tornadoes form? And I was like, I think I kind of know, but like, let me ask ChatGPT. And I like turned on the voice mode in the car, and like we're just having this conversation, and it's just explaining to us like how tornadoes form. And like she's just like, wow, that's really cool. And I'm like, thinking about like how our kids are going to be growing up in this world of AI. Yeah. Like I feel like the design world, if we're coming back around to the architecture side of things, like if she grows up to be an architect, the way she's going to want to work is going to be so different than the people of today. And that's just kind of exciting, Like,
well, exactly.
Fun to look through the telescope and see what's down there.
Right. But again, going back to the roots on some stuff, like, right. If that was her career path, the first thing would be is like, all right, go frame, right? Go pick up and do it, because that's not being digitized. That is still a manual moment that you have to do. Yes, there is like robots that can hang drywall now and all those cool stuff. And robots can lay out the mapping of the floor plan right there. You come, basically pour the slab, have the robot and lay it out. Like that's cool. But at the end of the day, you still need to know how to frame and that stuff. And like, there is such a crap, like I did a whole bunch of home renos at my last place and stuff. So I physically drew it up in Revit. Like I had the ideas, went on paper, drew it in the computer. And then I'm getting in here, I'm like, all right, time to estimate this, right? I got to go out to Home Depot and buy those sheets of, plywood. And right away, and you're just like, what a different perspective shift of going, how did the guys do this? And you start doing it. And then you get the materials and you think you got it right. Plus a few more extra trips to Home Depot because you forgot, and all that stuff. But then you get to the point where you're like, all right, I got the table saw, I'm ready to go. Got my safety goggles, got my measurements. Where do I start? And it's, so like totally, again, just that mind shift. But the more you do it and start looking at it, when you're like, again, talking a piece of millwork, when you start looking at those details, you're visualizing it, right? You're physically building in your head. And that's what makes you just that better coordinator, that designer. And you start thinking about the other guys, the mechanical, right? And the plumbing. Oh, we're putting a sink in this piece of millwork. So how are we, draining? How are we getting our P-trap in there? You've got all these drawers, like all these little details. So like going back to the roots is key, in my opinion.
You're designing with empathy.
Yes.
The mark of a just successful project in my mind that you've touched is one trip to the hardware store.
Yes.
You've arrived. If you can go one trip, you've arrived.
Yeah.
You're a master builder. Period.
Nope.
What of that? I mean, so there's so many things that we wish the architects knew, right? Like we could hurl really accusations at the architectural community. Like, well, you should really spend more time, you should know how to tactily draft or like draw something, actually draft it. You should know Revit better.
Yeah.
You should also know, you should be a master builder. You need to know, building materials more. You really should be more adept at having some environmental efficiency about the way that you're doing. Like there's so many things that come into building design. What in your mind, as somebody that's on the inside of this, like what sorts of things maybe are being prioritized that shouldn't be in the kind of educational backdrop? But then what kind of things are they doing a good job of training this next gen with? Like we're going to get to work with people that know how to do something that, the previous generation didn't do. Like what are they doing really well?
Well, it comes down to your instructor. Again, that age, I think who you get. And again, with this new batch of, like as we're going through this generation shift, that's good. So they're at least bringing their good habits and their good practices to that. They're going on about the envelope. We're talking all about all those details. They are bringing Revit. They're introducing it at school. So it's nice when, again, brand new, fresh, interns or whatever, they come in, they already know how to use Revit. There was a day where they never even touched it. They would have to go do a separate nighttime class to basically learn those programs to bring those skills right in. They don't really get, it seems like now they're not doing a lot of detailing in school, like little bits, and talking about the things. But with anything in life, it's all about your street smarts at the end of the day of getting that experience. And even if you had the ultimate school in a sense, I don't know if it would cover every little detail because we can never see that, until you go through that scenario of developing on a piece of land that has, right of way or, a riparian zone and just all those levels of experience. How would you ever know, right? And that's, but like they're getting in there, they're getting their taste. And then when it comes to architecture, they're definitely doing the whole theory, pushing the boundaries again, still with all, the design aspects and just thinking outside the box, getting out there, doing what architecture really is. But when it comes to like even CA, like that's something barely gets touched on. There's this element of CA, you'll be fine. Hold on.
I want to put the 10 hats on just for a second.
Do it.
Just for the fun of it.
Yes.
All right. So Matt, what is the thing that is most scaring you about the architecture space right now? And this could be like a directional thing. This could be a technology. This could be like, hey, we're going in this direction and this is scaring me, like the education side. What things do you feel like are big issues or that are just kind of haunting your dreams, keeping you up at night?
Keeping up, yes, always. On that fun note, that's like where...
On that fun night.
Yeah, that's fun night.
Yeah.
I don't get scared of the big things. It's more like when, like I said, you're building a deck and you're like, oh, how do I frame that detail? And like, there's other world problems here.
Yeah. High level. Is there anything? Yes.
I think it's, I guess, like I said, it kind of goes back to the opening statement. We're just not evolving in a sense. We got the GC. You guys are using Procore, using the tools. You guys are doing everything right. We're kind of getting stuck in this stalemate if things are not progressing. Like we're starting to get into, like I said, the VR. We're starting to get into that. But, where this kind of conversation started and it kind of goes to your post there, Eddie, is like, can we tender a BIM model and that kind of stuff? And like, can we get there? Maybe one day, not today. I guess like the bringing it down, I guess one thing that's scaring is with the price of everything going up, that's definitely a hot topic, right? And, me being in Canada and now we've got tariffs launching on Monday, apparently, that we'll see what that does to the industry. Like those having that uncontrolled pricing adjustments, and it's gone crazy ridiculous. Like I remember, this was again, kind of after the COVID days and stuff like that, we got a notice. We had to review all our glass shop drawings today. Like contractors were calling us pleading, please review it because literally pricing is going up 40% tomorrow. And it just, you know what I mean? Ooh. And it really, really sucks and I feel so bad. Like when we're in these publicly tendered projects, so it's basically, it goes out for tender. It's, it's set price. It's a stip sum build. And you got this painter that's not involved for 2 years. And then next thing you know, he can't do it because he's not making any money because Texas froze and all the, basically all that. Like that's the part where I get really sentimental because it's like, I have no control. I can't help you because you've signed up for a fixed contract. They can't get any more money and it puts them, and like, they think it's a really unfair scenario to the contractor, even though at the end of the day, the owner is, subject to a contract of getting this school being built at $28 million, not plus 25%, right? And we've seen a lot of companies go under in that sense. And I think that's not really, I'm kind of diverging from the architectural side, but I think it's what can we do better? And there is new formats like IPDs and we're seeing that hasn't really taken off out where I'm at in that sense. But yeah, I think costing is a big one. Two is, like I said, it's just seeing the architects kind of like leave behind. Some are still using AutoCAD, which just blows my mind because at the end of the day, we all share the same amount of time with each other. And kind of what you're going on about, Tyler, is like, it's not about taking jobs away. It's about being more efficient. And again, kind of going back to the Revit days. When Revit came into our office, before Revit, for us to draw a high rise, full working drawings, kind of start to finish, it was a team of 10, right? In order to keep to a standard timeline. When Revit came into the mix, basically that number dropped from 10 to maybe 2 users, and then eventually even pared down to a single user. Just depends on where it was. And we saw the same thing with drawing schools, right? You'd kind of phase people in, do most of it kind of one-on-one, bring more team in. And I think, again, the slow part of adoption is kind of what, like, guys, this is really changing fast. And if you're not on board, you're going to be left behind. You totally are.
So you brought this up because, Eddie, you posted something, right?
We've had a couple little things we've talked through.
You've had a couple
PDF thing, right?
You've had a couple spats.
So
I'm here to referee.
Yeah. Okay.
Done.
Okay. This is great. I'm happy. I didn't say anything stupid today. Eddie, you did. So, Matt, what did Eddie say that was stupid? Let's start there. Yeah, I'm
gonna remember. My homework. Oh shoot!
Oh crap! What was that PDF thing? Yeah. Well, Eddie, if you've done your homework, I don't care.
There've been so many posts that I've thrown out baiting people. I've had a series of posts that I'm trying to get people discussing, like what could happen, what might happen. And
you're like the old man with the dollar on the Geico commercial, like, oh, you almost got it. Yeah, he's like over there fishing with a dollar. Anyway.
I'm a curious soul, and I want to know what people think. And that's half of what this podcast is about.
You're a big instigator, too.
Those, I can genuinely say, were not meant to instigate. They were meant to ping. The question, I believe, if I'm thinking of the right one, was, will PDFs be around in 50 years?
Yes, that was one. That's right.
And I think that was the one. There was one before, but that was one we ended up talking
I dig
after
it.
that.
Yeah. I dig it.
So, Matt, you said, yeah, they absolutely will.
Absolutely. Because the thing is, as of right now, PDFs are what are making the contract. So it's very simple. We've got our drawings, right? That goes without saying. Again, that can be simple floor plans. It could be, again, looking at a school project, it could be 12 pages. That's how they used to do back in the old, like in the 70s when it was literally, that was the architectural set, it was 12 pages and they still built the school. Now we're doing schools that are, 170 pages because they're, we have to cover every little detail, right? And we'll get into this in a second. And then you've got the specifications. Those two documents are what make the contract when we go out there. It gives you the guidance to work from it, to base off it. This wall is, this length and everything. It's basically creating a contractual documentation. We get into like I said, the millwork details. You've got a piece of millwork on there on the plan. You've tagged it. And then you've got, additional details about that. And then also it's showing up in TR elevations. And by the way, we included some isometrics of, kind of 3D boxes just to kind of really showcase. And we did that same thing for elevations to ensure that we covered that little corner that we didn't call out in the elevations. That's what's forming the contract. That's what is being tendered and what people are bidding on. So where we kind of got into the fun banter about, could we, and I've heard a lot of people kind of come to me and be like, why can't we, I think we're just going to tender the Revit model. And I'm thinking that is a freaking disaster. You are going to have, the contractors are going to love you because they're going to be like extras, and just, they're going to, because it's all the intention. Like again, let's pretend we did just tender a model right now and it was a school or whatever. And again, you've got all different levels of expertise. You got some juniors, you got some, mid, and you got some, senior associates, and then you got your basically the architect of record who's signing off on it. Well, first of all, he's not drawing a Revit, right? He's just being the architect of record and checking it. Everyone's got different levels and different drawing skills. And two, Revit doesn't do everything that we want it to do. We have to fake it in a sense, right? And that's where people, and good for them, they've done the workarounds like, hey, let's use the curtain wall tool to draw a railing. That works really good. Look at that, actually gets the railing pattern right. That's really cool. Well, you tender that. Is it a curtain wall that I'm bidding or is it a railing? It looks like a railing. And that's where, again, going back to the plans, that's where you're going to call out. You're going to note it. You're going to document it. Same thing if we tendered a BIM model with a reception counter here in this sense. That's great. What is it made of? I didn't tag the material. My bad. I missed that. It's generic material. I'm bidding cardboard. I'm going to bid plywood for that countertop. Well, no. We intended that to be granite, right? We wanted to match it. We made a mood board. Well, that's nice, but it doesn't mean anything. So how do you how do you justify that, right? How do you do it? Versus if a physical detail is going to call up all those little pieces and the materials, and then you have a finished schedule. But if you don't tag it, that's where it's going to change it. And I've been in that scenario where on the contract, looking at the PDFs, we had a furring wall because it was massive steel, and we had an extra furring wall because we wanted to ensure that the wall was nice and clean on the level above. So there was no stupid jogs, and all these little attention to details are really important. And we forgot to tag it on the overall plan. And what a fight that was. But yet, through the 30 different sections and the wall details and everything that was tagged, they wanted us to own and pay for that wall. In that case, would a BIM model might have been better? Might have been. But I think the pros, cons, you're going to get a different world. I don't know. Now it's your turn, Eddie. Challenge.
And Pandora's box has been opened.
Tyler knows. We have just
feel like in the Pirates of the Caribbean when they're calling in the Kraken and they're like pushing the thing around or whatever. Eddie's coming out with his tentacles.
All right,
anyway.
I'll go straight up, just like devil's advocate on this. Is like, okay, so either Revit is incapable or the architect is incapable of getting appropriate information into the Revit model in order to tender it.
I'm so happy right now.
Is that why we would not tender a model?
Exactly. Like I said, it opens Pandora's box. That's what you do. Now, when the job is done, and you've got that, then yeah, of course, give the Revit model to the GC. He wants to open up and spin around that sense. But like tendering, again, this is why the PDFs are required, because that's what forms the contract.
Okay, so the contract's formed by PDFs or information on the PDFs?
The information on the PDFs, that's right.
Okay, is there more information in the robust model environment, or is there less information?
Well, it's how you're documenting it, right?
Information's there. So could there be a contract BIM model? And at some point, actually, the only thing that would keep a BIM model from being the contract is the specification.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if a specification says the contract, like if a contract reads, the BIM model is the contract document for this, then it would become the contract document. Now, the difficulties that surround that is, yes, I mean, the architect is now liable for things that they wouldn't have previously been liable for because, I model every day. Mm-hmm. I understand.
Workarounds are had.
I understand the workarounds. Like there are things.
Yes.
Though I have cut my teeth and come through an environment that has been much different in my experience than Revit. Since the inception of our company, we've worked in 3D, and we've always understood that what we put in the model is what will be built, right? So if you want it right, you make it right in the model.
100%.
And then the drawing is a representation of the model. That. Nothing more. It's just a representation. It's a portal into the model. So your 3D views, where you're calling out all of the millwork that are being tagged, should be appropriately tagged within what's in the Revit model. What you would hope as a general contractor is that those designers that have preceded you and are handing that 3D asset over to you, they have done a good job, that they've modeled to a level of accuracy that allows you to utilize it for layout, that they have modeled it to a level of accuracy to allow inquiry, that they've put in enough care that they will tell you where the gray areas are. Mm-hmm. And so we're talking 50 years.
Yeah.
And I know we're a stagnant industry, but I'm not seeing the rate of change actually going linear right now. I think some of my theory is based on rate of change is actually on a hockey stick, and that's being driven by AI. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So because of that, I think, will PDF be around? Yeah. I mean, paper's still around. PDF will still be around.
Yeah.
Documentation through PDF will still be around. I think it'll still be a useful thing.
Paper
will still be a useful thing. Because, I mean, if you've been in the field trying to work off a tablet, paper is useful sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's going to be more archival. at that point, right?
There
like
could
50
be
years from now, it could be
archival.
archival or something along those lines. Yeah.
But like our kids'
Yeah.
kids who will be entering into the industry,
Right.
like fluency in 3D is not a thing to my children. Like if I hand Tekla to my 8-year-old, he operates it. My 8-year-old. And if I hand a similar program to any of my kids, they'll operate it. They're accustomed to building houses in not softwares, but games. That they play.
Minecraft. Yeah.
Minecraft, yeah.
Not even,
Sims.
and not even like the blocks and everything like that, but I mean like
Roblox, was that the other one?
Roblox,
what was
Minecraft.
it? Katie built one, right?
Yeah. And it
was like legit.
And it was good. Right? So, I mean, if building becomes more about industrialization, manufacturing, kit of parts, all of these things, if those things get baked into a Revit model, if I can put a whole exam room together because I've got a database backing it up and all of the elements are just actually auto-populating, like Kimono Numo's talked about.
Yeah, right. So let me interject here.
It's
Let me
feasible.
interject. All right, boys, you've had your chance. Let me interject.
Oh,
here.
you're going to solve the argument.
I'm going to solve the freaking argument right here, right
Come
now.
on,
Let's do it.
Tyler.
I'm curious.
Ready
I
for
got a
it?
good
All right.
example where, anyways, but go ahead.
I did. Just wait. All right, I've got the speaking stick now. So
I'm glad to see you wading on in here.
doesn't take much. Here, kid, come get some beef jerky. All right. So the main key point here that I'm hearing is the accuracy of the model. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a key. Yeah.
Big key. Yeah.
Big key is the accuracy of the model. So here is me putting on my tin cap officially and saying, one, I don't think Revit's going to be around in 50 years. I think that there is another disruptor that is going to come into the marketplace, that it does leverage AI and it is going to fill in the gaps for us.
Yeah.
Because what we talked about a lot is like, you have these, we've had this push to like get the architect or, the engineer, whoever, just back to the master builder, right? The person that knows all the things. But quite frankly, like a lot of these systems and stuff that are new on the market now, like as an architect, like I know I could not keep up with all of them and how the intricacies of each one. That's another kind of thing that I would kind of push back on, like, oh man, I really wish that we could do it like the old days. Well, here's the thing is they had not quite as many building materials as we have now.
Yeah.
Also the safety factors. Like, I mean, look back at what they used to use for asbestos for crying out loud. Like
Different
these-
day.
Yes.
different day and time, right?
Yes.
And so we see how much it's changed. Now we're having to keep up with so many other building materials as a result of those findings of asbestos being bad, all of that stuff, right? And so in order to fill the gaps, in order to get back to this master builder mentality, we have to disrupt the systems that be. We have to start developing other software other technologies that can replace and basically enhance the architects, right? So you almost become this cyborg architect. Yeah, that's right. TM. I'm putting the TM on that one.
Cyborg architect.
Cyborg architect. But I mean, if you
.ai.
Look it up. No. Creed thoughts. All right. Sorry. Office quote. Geez, that's such a good scene in The Office. Go up, look up Creed
Come on,
thoughts.
keep going.
Anyway,
You're on a roll.
ADHD. So yeah, that's what I'll say is that I think that there's a disruptor on the horizon. When? I don't know. There's a disruptor of the modeling softwares on the horizon. It is going to leverage AI. It is going to have the capacity and the training, and if not out of the gate, over time, we will be able to train it on all these different systems to make our models more accurate, therefore eliminating the need for PDF across some of the boards. Not all, though, because I hear what you're saying with the contract language. I still think that there's a place for it in some capacity. But I do think that the model will be the bulk of the contractual data. We're going to still need it readable for people, though.
And that's right? 100%.
Like a dumbed down version, but it might still originate from the model, but we're still going to need a PDF
you gotta get
or some other thing to view, read, unless we all have little brain implants and we don't have to read anymore.
Okay, so
frick if I know this crap's going weird.
Yeah.
I want to help Matt, understand kind of where I came from with a little of this because we had just interviewed Luke.
Yeah.
Right. So we had a guy with Collegium, was it? And so he, fellow Canadian, was talking about doing exactly what you're saying. They were tendering models, and they were using them for estimates. Now,
we had a lot of questions around that one too.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of feedback on it too. A lot of people, and he even said it. You're gonna hear what I say and say IBS.
Yeah,
and I mean, but they were not only tendering models, they were also working actively to bypass general contractors and work directly with owners, so that owners could just go build their building. And lest we think that this is completely just asinine and doesn't happen, I have heard.
Good use of the word asinine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In Europe, construction is moving in this direction, like away from the traditional general contractor kind of paradigm,
principal contractor, I believe, is what they refer to it as.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, some of this movement's afoot. What it looks like in 50 years, I have no idea. I'm curious to see. I don't know. I mean, do you see architects getting a different seat on the bus as all of this comes out? I mean, I'm gonna really flick the nose now, right?
Yeah, you've really opened the box.
The GBIA and AIA have been like at each other, over this, like, who's in charge?
There's springs flying out of the box. Everything's going to crap here today, guys. I love it.
Is there a different seat on the bus? General contractors didn't like the previous statement.
That's
so
fair.
I mean, it's fair for all.
All right,
but
let's just make everybody mad here today.
Everybody's mad today.
Matt, step into the muck with us here.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to come into this puddle and we're going to have this sit down moment and let's get into a few things because
ideas and encouragement. That's what this episode's about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
But I like the comment that you just noted, like kind of architects stepping on the bus and a different thing. And there was one project that we started contemplating. We didn't do it, which was really sad. But like when it comes to like, because you're a steel detailer and all that, when you're drawing, like you aren't fudging stuff. You're drawing the right size of beams. You're doing the gusset plates. You're doing the connection details. There's not a lot of room for, like, if you did give that as a model, as a tendering thing, yeah, you're right. It probably would be fine unless you started doing some odd stuff. But it's more, I guess, more the artistic stuff where architects can get lost. But going back to kind of getting on the bus, one thing that we talked to one general contractor, it was an insightful idea because, again, to help fast track some of these projects, like how can we break the cycle of going drawings, meeting with all the user groups, then putting this, the basically the contractual document together, then tender it, then wait 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then they start mobilizing. Like, can we get moving with this? Can we build a school faster, or this warehouse, or whatever this project faster? And like I know there's methods like CM and IPD and all those things, but one of the ways, if you had to do it like as a fixed tender bid, was bringing a steel detailer, bringing him into early on, right? Once basically you go for a building permit, you got a design in place, you got a building permit set. At that point, the design's not really going to change too much, right? You're going to start refining and, tweaking a couple little areas. But you've got your structural engineer on the job. Why don't we bring a steel detailer on it, start modeling what we're already working with? The steel detailer and the structural engineer can start battling back and forth and doing their little fights. So there's no RFIs coming from this because it's just them doing it all during this CD stage. Basically, once we do tender that out, if this was a fixed tender, we not only have the architectural and all the other stuff in the steel shop or the steel engineer drawings, but you also have this steel package with it. And then at that point, we already know for estimating, you've all, again, using technology, you got all the pieces of member of steel all broken out by a list. Just give me a price on this. Lock it in. Great. The tender's been awarded to that GC. Immediately, you can just basically hit purchase order, start getting that steel fabricated. We're already on site. Oh, by the way, we did another approach by doing an earthworks tender. So by that CD stage, all the earthworks were already happening. So again, now we're really starting to fast track this process. So the earthworks is done. It's all graded down to where it needs to be. Contractor jumps on foundations. Next thing you know it, the steel's coming on there. We're taking months out of this contract. And I think if we can kind of shift that mindset, doing something like that and thinking that outside the box approach versus this is how we always done it. I think that's another way of really pushing the boundaries of, like you said, getting on the bus.
Do you want me to go, or you want to take it?
Oh, you guys are itching to just bite on this one.
I will let age go before beauty. How about that? All right.
Fair enough. Go ahead.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
I am okay. We've tendered models on a series of 50 golf entertainment venues in the United States, doing exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
We've done that with indoor skydiving facilities. How can I get more obscure with these names? Like we've done it, right? So this has been done. Now I get to flick the steel detailers, and everybody's pissed.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Here we go.
Here's the thing that I think I would ask. Why aren't the structural engineers working in some format where they can just finish the details and tender it themselves?
I've wondered that too.
Yeah, well, everybody's wondering it right now. Yeah. I think everybody's wondering it right now. And there are companies that are actively trying to do this. There are large engineering firms, and there are small engineering firms, and there are steel detailing firms that this is not like, it's not like this isn't obvious. Now, the problem is you get in the fabricator's kitchen with this, and there are fabrication preferences, and it depends on the receptivity of those people that have to bid what's tendered to like make it work. Here's what I know though. If you want the work, you'll be okay with how it's tendered. So you kind of figure it out.
Yep.
Here's what I also know is that the things that we modeled and did and conveyed, which was not only structural steel, it was actually also CMU, it was also HVAC, that we would tender those models with the expectation that the model would govern the bid. Yeah. Now, there was a little bit of fear factor in that the CDs still got conveyed, like, we still got to throw in there just so we got. Yeah. But what was actually governing the numbers was, the model, but more than that, information exports from the model that automatically populated the estimate and then enabled a very quick turnaround. Yeah. And I know specifically next door to the University of Phoenix Stadium, the battle of the golf entertainment venues was won by the one that got to the site first. Yeah. And that process enabled it. So it's an innovative thought, but I think that it's all of these things, like one thing precipitates another thought.
Well, that's the reason for the model. That's the reason for my model argument.
I agree with you.
Yeah. I think that's the reason for that is because Matt, what you're saying, like you're seeing the schedules like crunch down because like we're just using our heads. Yeah. We're doing this smarter.
Yeah, that's right.
We're using the tools that we have and making the process better. And that's ultimately where I feel like tech can take us, is that if there is that disruptor in the space that will bring this modeling platform to bear or whatever it might be and unify everything to where we can detail all of this stuff, we can push out bids, we can do this, we can have the engineer and the architect in the same model and the detailer in the same model and the MEP subs in the same model, all of these different people. Think of the possibilities of that.
Yeah.
And get it and have it detailed too.
Yeah.
Think of the possibilities.
If that's automatic, like if the architect can take it automatically.
Yes.
And the detailing happens, like let's say, so you were talking about thinking about load path in your walls. Mm-hmm. Like what if what you use thinks about that for you?
Yeah.
And that will change 100%. And some of it will work, right? Because again, that's a logical thought process. We've got a beam here. And that's where, again, if you train a computer model to say, well, hold on, how are we supporting this? Then you're good to go. But like I said, when it comes to, I guess, more the creative side where you go beyond the envelope, right? Pushing the boundaries with design of doing that, sloped wall. How are we doing it? And again, if AI, I always had people be like, oh, we're going to just push, once we get that model done, we're just going to go create the CDs by pushing a button. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to be a disaster. It's going to look like a house at the end of the day because it's going to use house details that are not going to match because AI is just seeing that.
Yeah.
it all depends on what you're feeding the beast and that stuff. What
Right.
good stuff. And if you're feeding crap to it, you know what's going to come out the other end, right? Like it's a tough one. Like at the end of the day, you have to have the intelligence.
The data component of this and the training of AI models is something that I've just been like super into lately, and I'm loving it. Like, because like how much context can I give this tool to help me even more? And what the big thing that started to shift, I'm going to just go back to like LLMs for a minute. Excuse me. I'm going to go back to like LLMs for a minute, instead of modeling platforms and things. So, like ChatGPT, like Claude, like, Perplexity, they need context.
Yeah.
They need context. And I think where I went wrong early on is I started treating it like it knew everything that I needed it to do automatically. What really helped me, though, is starting to look at it like it was a new employee. And what would you do with a new employee? You would train them.
Yeah.
You would give them information. You would make sure that they had the tools to get the job done.
Yeah.
But the difference is that AI doesn't forget that crap.
That's right. You have to repeat it 3, 4, 5 times.
And so that's the thing that's, I don't know, I'm getting really excited about that, especially from from a detailing perspective, from like all of these other aspects. Like that is the thing that's ultimately going to shift, I feel, in our industry. And it's going to take a minute, but I think it's coming for us maybe a little bit quicker than some of these other things have, just because of AI coming in and entering the picture and it becoming so much more accessible.
Well, exactly.
All right. So we've burned an hour, like nothing here. And I feel like we need to.
I'm just getting going.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
We are.
we are
too. Just getting going.
So Princess Bride.
Part 2.
The tin Hat Club will reunite.
Maybe we reunite on. I'm going to invite myself to your house, Matt.
Yeah, let's
maybe
do it.
we reunite on your podcast. We finish.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how to put a bow on all of this because it's like this big ball of yarn that just got unraveled in the middle of the table. I don't know what will happen. I'm not prideful about like how it needs to happen.
No.
I'm just really after like, I love that you have a respect for the tradition, but an absolute passion for the truth. And so we're going to continue in that seam. I think we can all agree it's gonna change.
Yeah.
I think we all can agree that we all need to adapt, which I believe does bring it full circle to the message that you were bringing, Matt, was that architects and the industry at large needs to adapt. Like we need to be adaptive in our processes and workflows and look for the next thing, like whatever that is. So I want to give you another final piece of time for some
soapbox.
It's a little like final rebuttal, and then we'll get to the microphone after that.
Microphone?
The megaphone.
How long have we been doing this, man?
Good while, and that's
first time you ever called the microphone.
I goofed it.
What question were you?
I was going to stop talking and just let Matt give me some final words on this whole thing.
This whole thing. Wrapping this up. The summary of a summary. What we're going to.
I'm out of words. I'm going to summarize the summary so we can get the summary and then the megaphone questions.
There you go.
AI.
I on that note, I think I like the comment when the architect's going to get in the bus. And I think it's just that reshaping that mindset. And like, as your guys were talking, it brought me up to, one of actually a close friend I grew up with, and they started on a farm and they became irrigation and they eventually became plumbing and stuff. And what they kind of did is they modeled it. And then when they went out to site, they 3D LiDAR'd it, brought it back into the model, make sure all their beams were all in the right spots. And then they just did their tweaks in their Revit model. And then they just basically sent that stuff out to fabrication. And then it came to site like a key, and it was just like Lego blocks, bang, 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 went away. And I think if we can start more thinking a forward approach, like how can we be better? How can we, fast track this? How can we change the rhythm, right? Try new things, try new approaches to really become that well-oiled machine. Can we do that? And I think we can. And if you're not doing it, if you're not thinking like that, you're going to be forced really quickly, because the way technology is advancing, it's that exponential curve. And like, again, look at how AI has just changed and like how fast that's being adopted, how things are. And you're totally right, Tyler. Revit's not here to stay. It can be, but it's who's driving it, right? Why did Revit get built from the beginning? It all came from a group of architects and engineers going, we're so done with drawing in 2D. How can we be better? And that's what's happening. So yeah, I think we're on the verge of seeing something really great where, we've been so blessed with having this, new technology, but there's going to be another step where it's just going to blow us. And we're due. We're way overdue for that new tech, to come into place. And like I said, the days of logging CA in Excel charts, those days are done too, right? There's tools out there that are going to make you better. And again, at the end of the day, do you want to be doing the stupid little tedious task, or do you want to be enjoying what you do, right? You can make a commercial on that by itself.
So I've kind of done that thing. Like I set you up for the false bottom, but I mean, distilling all that.
The false bottom.
Yeah. It's like,
Nice.
okay, we're done.
Nice.
Here.
Yeah. Nice.
I mean, that was very well put. So now I'm going to ask you the megaphone question.
There you go. You got
which
it right.
distills it
So proud of
even
you.
further. So let's do that. So if we gave you the megaphone to speak to the whole construction industry, metaphorically speaking,
yes,
in 60 seconds, also pretty much metaphorically speaking, what would you say?
All right. Communication is key, 100%. We got to do that. How can we do this better? And in metaphorically speaking, let's not catch ourselves off guard, with the whole frog in a pot, doing a bit of a slow cooker right now. You don't really notice it right away. But, when it gets to that point where it's done, it smells really good. And I think that's the thing. We don't want to be caught off guard with that. Start looking at options right now. Start encouraging, start pushing the boundaries. How can not only just architecturally consultants, but contractors as well kind of come together and start new ways of doing it. So we don't have to deal with the frustrations of, price increase and all that, or conflicts on site. We all want to make our money at the end of the day. We want to do a great job. We all want to crack that bottle of champagne when that job's done. How do we do that? Communication's key.
Do architects get to crack bottles of champagne when jobs finish?
What the crap, man?
I've been missing.
Yeah, we've been missing out on that.
Come on, you got to put that in the specs or something,
We don't get that at all. Also, okay, one more thing.
Eddie.
He did a metaphorical thing in the metaphorical megaphone to wrap the show up. It's just like, feel like it deserves kudos. Maybe not champagne, but kudos.
Not champagne. We're not allowed
until part.
Until part two. Matt, dude, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.